Welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Peter Martin. I'm delighted to say this week's guest is Ricky Ross, the lead singer with Deacon Blue, and of course a solo singer as well, may I add. Writer, the lot, broadcaster, award winner. It's not a bad CV, Ricky. I think 1,000,001 people will have interviewed you in your entire career, so I'm going to try and take you over this next hour and derail you every now and then.
Good.
But let me take you back to Dundee. What was it like growing up in that city?
Well, it was a very happy time for me. My folks lived in. I mean, this is when you think about it. I was born in 1957, so it really was only not that long after the war, I suppose.
Yeah.
You know, the original austerity and so on. My folks had bought a house, a small house where they got married, where I grew up for the first 5 years of my life, which was just off the Kingsway. And eventually, I was about 5 years old. We moved out to the ferry, which everyone does, the West Ferry we were in, which is the posh move. But that was really the family home. It was right near a park where all the boys just played football all the time, and it was a very happy place for me, And I still, I don't have any. I don't have any family there anymore, but I still have lots of reasons to go up.
Yeah, I know you were very, very close to your grandfather and your mum and dad. Obviously, they would have an impression on you. Did they have an impression on you in music?
On music, well, music came in a strange way for me because my dad had a radio. He loved the radio. He loved all kinds of radio, and he did sort of music sort of seeped in the house. But we actually grew up without a record player, so it was a very loving environment, a very happy place, but we were quite strict evangelicals, Christian. That was the atmosphere that we grew up in. And there was a little bit of, obviously disapproval around pop music and all that kind of thing. And I think maybe for my mum anyway, maybe having a record player wasn't like it was banned, it just wasn't, they never got around to having one. So when we got one, finally one arrived midway through primary school. That was just a kind of great moment. But we also had a piano in the house. My mum played piano and people would play the piano. So there was lots of music about. But, it's funny to think that how did you hear things when you didn't have a record player and sometimes, pop music wasn't played in the house. I think it came in all kinds of ways. We had a TV and I guess, hearing the Beatles on the radio and that kind of thing must have happened.
Subconsciously, though, with the piano, do you think that maybe had a major influence on the way you constructed your songs, the melody, the words?
I still think that, and hymns, because when I went back, I did a lot, piano lessons and usual story, you sort of don't really enjoy it, and then sort of gave it up. I actually gave it up because one of the distractions was I used to go to piano lessons at school, and then when I went to secondary school, the piano teacher did it privately, and she lived about half a mile from Tannadice, and we'd arranged to have a Saturday lunchtime piano lesson, which my dad would then pick me up from when we'd go to the game, and all I'd spend my time was just looking out the window, just waiting for this moment to end, the torture to end. But when I stopped doing piano lessons formally, my mum said to me, learning to play hymns is quite a good way of, just keeping your hand in sort of thing. But I wanted to play by ear. I just didn't really want to read music. So yes, the piano was just, it wasn't a good piano. It was an awful piano, but it was really central to probably everything that I've done musically.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about Dundee United a little later on, and your love of football. Do you think the foundations of that Christian value that you're talking about, do you think that foundation that was put in there has served you well going through an industry which is notoriously a car crash?
Well, I think you've got to know who you are. You've got to know who you are and who you are and who you're not. And I think I certainly knew that I wasn't really interested in rock and roll and the whole thing. And that whole mythology. I've always just been interested in songs. That's what the song is. It's a brilliant piece of work. It's a brilliant art form, and once you know what you're interested in and what you're not interested in is good. I mean, my faith, like everyone else's, comes and goes. It's a work in progress. I think, but yeah, I think it's as I've got older as well. It's it's been a constant through my life. And even though it's expressed differently than the way I grew up with, I think I have enough in common with people of faith and other faiths, you know, to know that we both feel the same things about it.
Yeah, I think the other great thing about it, if ever and I think it's a lot of Scottish bands and a lot of singers that I get the great fortune to sit down with and chat with, they always retain that sense of where they came from, not so much that kind of a detachment when they move away. And if I say, I'm going to speak to Ricky Ross, the resounding feeling I get from everybody I've spoken to says, oh, he's a great guy, he's right down to earth, which I think is great testament to, you know, when you think about the success you've achieved with Deacon Blue, where you've been, the people you probably mixed in, it's a great tribute to you and the rest of the band. I mean, I've seen Dougie many times strutting his stuff at Five Asides, and he's as down to earth as you could wish for.
Yeah. And I suppose, you know, I suppose we're all, you know, we're all kind of grateful, but as you get older, and you have that kind of longer view over things as well, you know, it kind of helps set your perspective a little bit.
I was interested to hear you saying that, you know, from Dundee and that, you've given us the insight into the musical history early on in your life. You mentioned that when you were in Dundee, you were drawn to Glasgow. It's almost on a parallel with, you know, you hear Joni Mitchell, Graham Nash, you hear Neil Young, and they were all saying, well, we're drawn to Laurel Canyon in LA because that's where our music scene was. Yeah.
Well, I think for me, there was a very definite reason to come, but the kind of wider thing was you're aware that there was, you know, more than one act from Glasgow. There was a lot of things going on. There was studios, there was sort of an infrastructure, there was people, there was musicians, you know, there was a pool of musicians. So there was a whole world to explore. And I needed people, you know, I needed people to work with. And, you know, I felt that was going to be, you know, the right move for me. And Glasgow was just, to me, Glasgow had always been an exciting place because I was an outsider. So Glasgow was a place that you came, I mean, first of all, you know, you came on big football nights. And I say nights because it was always, you know, the first trip to Glasgow for football was for Scotland games. And then it would be disappointing afternoons at Hampden. But, you know, it was always that kind of big occasion. And then it was coming through at the Apollo. You know, it was coming through to because big, you know, say American touring acts, and so it didn't come to Dundee. So we'd come through and go to the Apollo and see these acts. And it was just this, it was just an exciting place. And it always felt like, to me, when you came to Glasgow, it kind of didn't, you know, we always laugh at the fact that Edinburgh people have a kind of nickname for Glaswegians, and then they say, well, what do you call us? And they say, well, I don't have one.
What did you mentioned the Apollo, what kind of band got a young Ricky Ross excited?
Well, I came through to see Neil Young in 1976. I came through to see, fun enough, at Parkhead, I think the year before that, it was one of the first trips to see The Who. And a band that I still love at the time, we were playing with them, Little Feet. And that was really exciting day at Celtic Park and sort of standing on the grass. I mean, the open air gigs in these days were chaos, but the Who were really just very, very exciting. I still remember an awful lot about that gig. It's funny, you know, and you forget things that you've seen 6 months ago, but I can still remember an awful lot about that gig. You just soaked in everything. And we'll do that. Oh, right. We'll try that. You know, and the Neil Young show similarly, which was a big thing for me. You know. Yeah.
Did they have you know, those early groups that you wanted to go and see? Yeah. Did they have an influence on you on the way you wanted to sound if you were going to go in that band when you got to Glasgow?
Yeah, I guess it all kind of mixed in. I mean, you know, it didn't obviously sound like that. I think that, I think all of that sort of fit in. I mean, the reality was, for me, it took a long time to work out what I really wanted to sound like. I knew I wanted to write songs. I knew I wanted to put a band together. But even a year before Deacon Blue kind of got it together, it still sounded pretty different. You know, it just took a while, and then suddenly within about 6 months it sort of clicked. So it was a case of finding the right people. You know, people are, you know, it's really important to have the right people around you, and I'm really grateful. I've just had amazing people around me.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough that, you know, of the Scottish bands, and I'm fiercely patriotic, as we all are when we see Scottish bands do well. I like bands that I know can play in a venue with 200 and then go and play 20, 30,000. And I think you're one of those bands, you know, like last week I went to Cottiers to see James Grant,
Right.
and he was just magnificent. And I wonder, of the people that you got to in Glasgow, was there a group of people there that you thought, oh, he's definitely going to make it, he's going to make it, this one's helped me, you know, because early days of the 80s, Simple Minds were the groundbreaking act, and everybody started to connect around them.
Yeah, well, Simple Minds were the gold standard. You know, they were the band that had made it, and you would go and see bands. That was a band that I played in before. It was in the band I was playing keyboards in this other band, and you'd see other bands, you support other bands. You know, we talk about James, Friends Again. I think we played with them, and you know, you watched all these people, and you kind of had a hunch maybe they'll make it, and people that I thought would make it didn't make it. And then other people just kind of popped out of nowhere, and it was just, but it was a very exciting time. I don't know whether it was just because we were part of that scene, and maybe it's just as exciting for people now, but it just seemed, you know, at that time, like on a Thursday night, for example, in Glasgow, a lot of A&R people would come up, and there'd be some sort of showcase gig, and, you know, so-and-so was getting signed, and if you met them, you could hand them your cassette, you know, if you played your cards right. So, yes, it was the thing you were talking about people that can play and, you know, play in a small venue and play in a big venue. I mean, that was the other thing about it was just finding people that were. I always wanted to find people that were 10 times better than me as musicians. And that was my kind of basic rule. Is that, look, I know what I can do, and it's, you know. So I want to find someone who's much better than me. You know, so I remember when I signed my first publishing deal in Central, you need to get a really good keyboard player. I thought, oh, you're saying I'm not very good, you know. But I did, and finding Jim Prime is he's a beautiful piano player. Still a huge part of Deacon Blue, part of that sound. Lorraine is a much better singer than I'll ever be. You know, Doogie is a sort of consummate musician, and is, you know, he's able to. If you sat in a rehearsal, he's the guy that would be saying, well, no, we should be doing this and that. So it's important. These people were just so important to that.
Did you feel, Deacon Blue, at that time, when you see some bands, you're looking and say, oh, wow, they've made it.
Yeah.
They're on that highway. Was the driving force always with you, listen, I'm going to write the songs, obviously I'm going to have to tweak them to make them more commercial. Did you start to feel the pressure? Are we going to make it? Are we good enough?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
I think sometimes you just don't know what you want. You know, you want something that's so nebulous, and you want a song. You know, I suppose what I wanted to do was I wanted to do something that moved people. You know, I wanted to be in a band, but I just didn't. I wasn't like, you know, you see these kids on the X Factor saying, you know, all I've ever wanted to do is this, and I'm like, I don't quite buy it. You know, I don't believe it because I don't think it's true. Because I think that every kid grows up with a plan B and C as well, and you have, you know, you want to do certain things, but if someone distracted you over there for a minute, you might go over there. I think what I wanted to do was I knew I wanted to make music, and I wanted to have a song or songs that sort of changed people. You know, some that didn't just come and go, and that 3 minutes was pleasant. I just wanted a song that would somehow make an impact on people, you know, and a gig that people would just go away talking about, or, you know, I literally wanted people to come in one direction and go out thinking something else, you know, they felt that their life had changed.
Yeah.
That was how important it was to me, and it was that search for, you know, these songs, and so you just go through it. Even now, you always do it. If you're making an album or you're writing an album, you go through songs, and you'll be halfway through a song, and you'll go, I know this is not going to be the one, but it might take me to the next one.
Yeah.
And that's what it was like.
Yeah, and that process, as you know, and you obviously are a broadcaster on radio as well as, you know, the main focus is the band. As you know, some people who try and make it, all their efforts, all their energy goes into that first album.
Oh, yeah.
And then, you know, sometimes second and third album, they can disappear into obscurity. Raintown was, you know, for many people, you know, of my friends, they looked at it and there were so many songs within it that they could, you know, relate to, and they loved the fact that you were based in Glasgow, and they just loved the grittiness of the songs. I wonder, can you tell me what came first? Because I can remember, you know, I DJ'd in clubs in Glasgow, and I remember getting the 12-inch version of Loaded. And I thought Loaded was the first one. But was there 3 or 4 incarnations of Dignity?
Well, there were eventually. Dignity was the first single. That was the first track that was ever released, and that was a track that was a song that really got us a record deal. We coincided. We found a guy that. It was funny because even our manager at the time, we had 3 songs on this demo, and one was Dignity, one was a song called Just Like Boys, which became a B-side song that Jim and I wrote, and I was never really sure it was really us, but it was quite commercial sounding, and that was the one our manager got quite excited about at the time. And there was another song called The Very Thing, which I always think is maybe my favourite song of Raintown. And anyway, the guy who eventually sent us to CBS Records, Gordon Charlton, heard Dignity and just loved it. I mean, that was it. From that moment on, that was going to be the song. And it was the song. He was right. You know, that was the song that we'd been looking for, that I'd been looking for. That was the moment that I felt, this is a story I want to tell. You know, This is a story. And by the time that Deacon Blue came together, I was probably 26, 27, maybe even older by the time that the record came out. And I felt I'd sort of done an apprenticeship of songwriting. I've got, you know, fortunately not given people the bad songs. They're
locked away.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was 1 or 2 good ones, but they weren't there yet. You know, so that sort of whole apprenticeship meant that I think Raintown got me and everyone else a good point. So it sort of arrived a bit, you know, like fully formed. We had a bunch of songs that sounded like they were good songs. And still, I think, still are good songs. Still songs that we want to play live.
Yeah, absolutely. They passed that test of time. Do you think because you were a wee bit older, that helped you cope as you get on that roller coaster?
Not sure, because my life went kind of, you know, slightly kind of mad after that. But because I think nothing prepares you for that sort of level of just change. You know, it's just mad. But I think in terms of songwriting, I think it was maybe quite a good time to arrive. I think you know, if I look back on the songs, there was nothing there that I really felt, you know, we'd missed out on. I think maybe that first 60 or 70 songs, you know, got me to that right point.
Yeah, I looked at your face there, and I could see you going off into the distance and going back, going, "It was mad." What was mad about it?
Well, I think in life, you know, I think that it's funny. There were 6 of us in Deacon Blue. Obviously, Graham died in 2004, and saw Ewan actually the other week. We did a benefit show together, and he was playing with Capra Cayley. But there's 6 of us, still 4 of us, obviously, who are the core of the band, who went through that. And all of us, I think Jim was the only one who'd made an album. He made at least one record with John Martin, playing keyboards with John Martin. He was really young. The rest of us, I'd made a kind of independent little cassette album that I'd done on my own. But none of us had really been in any sort of big studios or proper studios other than one we used in Glasgow, which was great. It's a great studio. But we hadn't done anything that resembled having a life in music. And then suddenly, you know, you're on tour, you're in a bus, you're playing gigs, you're meeting people, you know, all the usual stuff that happens, you know, all the usual stuff that goes on with all of that.
People stroking your ego.
Yeah. And trying to kind of, you know, I sort of have one foot in, you know, because I taught for a couple of years and still, you know, have teaching pals who were kind of, you know, slightly skeptical and, you know,
is he going to change?
Yeah. And ex-pupils that I still bump into, oddly enough. So there was all of that going on, and it takes you on a roller coaster ride through to, you know, the thing at that point was always when I left my job, people said, "Are you going to be on Top of the Pop? Are you going to?" There are 2 questions. You're going to make a video. That was a big thing. Videos were big in the days. And I had no interest in making a video, but you had to make a video. And are you going to be on Top of the Pops? And I remember thinking, and even people say to me, "What's your dad going to say? You know, you're going to give up a job, blah blah blah." Because you know, I said he'll be fine once I'm on top of the pops, because he'll know there's some money coming.
Yeah. And with that in mind, how integral to the success of it was Lorraine?
Oh, I mean, it's so difficult to kind of to separate, because we weren't together as a couple at that point. She was coming in. We had basically had a band that no one was really singing harmony, and so we had to get someone to sing some backing vocals. And Lorraine had come in actually quite early on to do a demo. I think even before Jim was there. So she'd come in quite early on, and she was in another band, but she was a friend of a friend, and we'd sort of tried different people, and she started coming in and just being Lorraine, you know, she just not just doing what she was asked to do, but just, you know, being there. And I always remember there was a point where one of the guys in the band said to me, "You know, we're going to need to get her to join this band, or she's going to walk, you know, she's going to leave."
She's going to walk.
So she was really important. And then I think what happened was, by the time that we actually made Raintown, John Kelly, who produced the album, was really encouraging of it. He said, "I just want just go in the room and play. Just do what you did when I saw you that night, the other night at that club or that student union, whatever it was you were playing." And we thought, great, because it took all the thing of, I don't know how to, you know, we don't know how to make records. And you know what to do, you know how to play. And so one of the magical things about Raintown was it was really done live. It was really, you know, the vocals were done live very often. We were playing off each other. And that's where that sort of chemistry started, because Lorraine would just do things that you wouldn't expect or whatever.
Yeah.
So she was just instrumental in that respect. And then over the course of time, she's just been my... it was fun enough, even before I came away this morning, I said, "Well, why don't we just co-write this song?" No, I'll just tell you what to do. And it's great. She's kind of editor, or just say, "Look, that's not working. It's not moving me, so go back and think about that and try this." And it happens all the time. It's an amazing thing.
Did it complicate the band? Were you falling in love with her?
Yeah, probably. You know, I mean, it does. You know, everyone's seen Spinal Tap. You know. You know that it probably did at a time, and all things like that kind of rocked the boat, and everyone went through, you know, all of us I think went through sort of changes in relationships, and it did, but it was a long time. That was a long time ago, and we sort of kind of actually we came through to that period into the 90s, into a really kind of happy time where you have to find. You know, you have to find your feet. There's that first explosion.
Yeah.
And I think then you sort of find, right, okay, we're now in a sort of place of, we kind of know who we are, we know what we're doing. And it was actually a really happy time. And I think that I was always very impatient. You know, I was always very impatient to get on with the next thing. And, you know, with the long view of things, you know, we split up for about 5 years when we could have probably just, you know, quietly, I could have gone off and done the thing I was wanting to do something else, and then come back. But I'm daft.
Yeah, I've just got this vision of Ricky Ross has called a meeting. By the way, I'm going out with Lorraine.
It was less
official. And at that point, then, if you get to that happy place, I mean, the great thing, and the great, you know, testament to the strength of your marriage is the fact that you're still together. I mean, how do you know, it's great being in the happy place, but when you're in a band and then all of a sudden, is there a rocky moment when you suddenly, as your life goes on, Lorraine's got her development, she changes?
I think for us, we were very lucky that the band stopped at a time when we were having children. I mean, we did tour quite extensively with our first daughter. And that's quite exhausting, you know, to actually went around the world. And then we stopped. So actually we were both at home in the late 90s. We were both at home a lot when our kids were young. And by the time that our youngest son came along, I remember us both thinking, and we didn't really have a career at that point. It was kind of like, it was quite chaotic. You know, we were thinking, well, I remember I actually said, we'll just have to muddle through, see what happens.
Yeah. Were you still writing for other people?
I was starting to do that, but I really wasn't. I really was I really reached a kind of we've reflected on this recently. It was like the early 2000. He was born in 2000, and maybe about a year or two after that, we're thinking, well, I don't know what we're going to do because
Did you think you maybe had your that Andy Warhol 15 minutes of fame?
Yeah, I didn't think anyone owed us a living, And by that time, Lorraine had started acting, fun enough, and she started doing. She got in this Ken Loach movie, which was really a great break for her, and did a bit of acting. And then, not long after that, started doing River City.
Yeah.
So she was doing a lot, we were great. Well, suddenly she got a job, And I'd started. I'd really signed a publishing deal with a view to writing for other people. And you start off in that world. You're right at the bottom of the pile. You go into the songwriting world. It's the same. I mean, and I go to Nashville, and there's all these names that would mean nothing to anyone outside the music business. But in that world, they're gods. And well, you write with so and so. That's amazing. So I'd sort of gone into that songwriting world, which again, I was bottom of that pile and trying to make sense of that world. And just by luck, apart from anything else, just go writing with different people, I ended up writing a song on what happened to be the biggest selling record of that time, which was James Blunt's record, which just, completely changed things again for me,
Yeah. This might be out of left field and it might be totally wrong. Please forgive me. Somebody gave me it second hand and I latched onto it and I thought to myself, you writing songs, did you write a song for a James Bond movie? Somebody said to me,
no.
Did you put something on a James Bond?
No, the only movie experience we had was just as Deacon Blue were finishing for the first time. I got someone actually did commission a song, wanted me to write a song for a movie, for a Hollywood movie called Blown Away.
Yeah.
And I did, and they loved it. It's a classic Hollywood story. And we wrote the song. I did a demo of it, and then the guy, whoever the producer was, phoned me up, and it was a classic kind of Hollywood thing. And he was to phone the house, and he phoned the house. I've got whatever the guy's name. I got Larry, Rubenstein on the phone, And as I picked up the phone, and all I heard was this voice, "Who am I speaking to?" I thought, well, you phoned me, mate, Anyway, played the song, and then they loved it. They loved the song so much that they were going to put at the end. This song's great. So go off and cut the song in the studio. Great. So we cut the song, and then we're going to put it on the end titles. And then someone came in and didn't like it on the end titles. So it went from being there to the end, and just fell off.
Cut.
Yeah.
Because those type of things can make you a fortune.
Absolutely, because that was the time when actually, bizarrely enough, that's right. Film soundtracks were still selling,
Yeah, because the Proclaimers, I think, managed to get their song on Benny and June, and
Yes.
off and running. Thank you.
Yes.
Here come the royalties. With the band, because there's a real good country, underlying feel to a lot of your songs. Certainly in the second album, I sensed that, and a wee bit of Eagles rhythm in there too, which I absolutely adore from it. Was that an influence on you as well?
I think it probably was. I mean, I think, having ended up doing a country music show, it's weird, but I always loved it. I always loved it, but didn't know much about it. But I always got into, in the 70s, I was really into Graham Parsons. And then from discovering who Graham was, then discovering who the Bird, I kind of knew about the Birds, obviously, about the Burrito Brothers and all that kind of stuff. So you kind of work your way back. And of course, country rock was huge, in that time. You mentioned the Eagles and so on. So there was a lot of that stuff. And, I grew up as a big Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young fan as well. Yeah. Buffalo Springfield, all these sort of things. So they were all kind of in that mix. So I guess it kind of comes out somewhere in songs. And I'm a great admirer of country song structure. And the fact is that country songs tell stories, which is a great thing.
Being a big band and obviously touring the world, you mentioned the madness that goes on. Is there a moment where you actually sat there and you know, the Ricky Ross of Dundee suddenly, and the Ricky Ross, which is the persona of this superstar, stands there and thinks, this is mental.
Well, I mean, there's probably a few moments. I'm trying to think that in terms of touring. I think when we went to America, certainly, you know, I think that we went to New York. I think we came from, because we'd been in Australia, we came west to east, and we ended up in New York. And when you play the Bottom Line, which is this legendary venue, that was fine. You know, I was looking forward to playing the Bottom Line, but it wasn't until we got there discovered they actually have to play 2 shows. You have to play one at, say, 7:30, and then they clear the house at back at 9 o'clock. I don't know how. I must have played for. Cause we had a 2-hour show, so I mean,
yeah.
you know, then it got cleared, and then you did it all. Have to do it all again. A new audience came in, and it was just brilliant. It went absolutely brilliant. But I remember just coming off stage and someone said, well, "Did you see Rod Stewart?" I said, "No, I didn't notice." You know, and Springsteen's management came down, all that kind of thing. So yeah, there were moments like that that were, wow, you know.
Yeah, I have that kind of a, you know, that feeling of your music that it would have been massive in America.
Well, we hoped it would have been, but it wasn't. You know, I think Dignity, oddly enough, Dignity was going better in America than it was here for a while. And I remember being at Heathrow one day, and I bumped into this guy who was an A&R guy for another label, had just come off a flight. Yeah, you know, again, one of these people you'd met on the way up and maybe might have signed you and all that kind of thing. I've just been in America. You got a hit record, and I was like, really? You know, like we're getting played, and we were getting played. Dignity was getting played, but then there was a kind of change in the people at the record company, and the emphasis changed of which radio. I don't know, all the kind of politics of which radio format you go to, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, I read in your book, you know, obviously you're doing big concerts, you're doing big arenas, and at one point when you're ready to introduce a song, suddenly a fan brings you right back down to earth, a bit of heckling.
Yeah, or just like get on with it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, as soon as you kind of, you go into that world, you know, and you think, well, you've signed up for it, you know, you need to deal with it, and it's one of the things that I think is probably, you know, helped to be just a little bit long in the tooth now, you know, because we do play these arenas again, and you have to play it a certain kind of way. You know, you can't just play it as if it's the Barlands or as if it's King Tut's. You know, you have to know that people are not actually going to see you; they're going to see you on the screens and all that kind of thing. So there's a certain kind of way you have to play it. You have to maintain the core things that are yours.
Yeah.
And, you know, stamp your authority on it, because it's your gig. You know?
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, then, you know, all hell will break loose. But yeah, I think the first time round, you know, we were booked in to play shows at Wembley. It was. I remember going. The thing that was a bigger culture shock than the audience was. I always remember just going into. There's a big catering room, and you know, up until that point, you just known everyone. You know every truck driver, because every bus driver and every truck driver did something else on the tour. And there was a guy who used to say to me, "Are you doing such and such a song tonight, Ricky?" I was like, why does he ask me that? Because apparently, if I did it, he had to be up in the truss doing the spotlight. That was. So up to that point, you'd known everyone, and I remember walking into the big catering room and thinking there was just rows of tables and people and big beardy guys sitting around. And I thought, I don't know any of these people.
Yeah.
Are they all working for us? You know.
And you're all paying for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Which brings me to the catalogue. Paul McCartney said, you know, trying to pick a favourite song is like trying to pick your favourite kid. Is there one that you just think, as you strive for that perfection, is there one that you think, that's really, I was at the top of my game?
Well, there's things that you think you got right, you know, and things that you think you're grateful for. I think for a while I had this sort of, you know, when you have a hit record, everyone always has a kind of love-hate relationship with it, because it's great because it obviously takes you to a place, but then you think, well, people think that's just what we are. But I would say, I've said for a number of years now, Real Gone Kid's my favourite song because it makes people happy.
Yeah.
And, you know, I sort of resisted that a little bit. I think in the 80s and 90s, you know, sometimes not even doing the song and doing all that kind of thing. Who the hell are you to think that? You know, give people people are there and they're going to enjoy that moment. It doesn't mean to say you can't have other moments, more intimate moments. So that song really did change a lot of things about this band, and for me as well. And I love the fact that it just makes people happy.
Were you ever tempted by executives who turn around and said, look, we know you're a writer, we know you've written all these songs, here's a Don't You Forget About Me song we want you to record?
Well, weirdly enough, no one's ever done it. I wish someone would have done it, actually, in some ways, The Simple Minds guys didn't want to do that at first. I know that. I've spoken to Jim about that, and they were kind of resistant to the song. But I think now they would say, it's been a kind of very good friend to them. So no one did it. And I wish, my one regret is that I wish in some ways I would have been more open to co-writing with other people as well.
Yeah.
Back in the day. But I met Muff Winwood, who's a very bright, lovely guy. Muff was head of A&R, and Muff is Stevie's big brother, and so he was always, because Muff was, a musician and a producer and so on, he was always someone whose advice you always kind of listened to. And years later, I was going back and talking about doing a songwriting project, and I was having a chat with Muff, and he was talking about, artists being a little bit reluctant to co-write, and then he said to me, by the way, he said, if I'd suggested, you going off to write, you would have told me where to go as well.
Yeah.
Which is true, because you were just full of it. You're just full of that stuff.
Yeah.
And
why don't you do it now, though?
What's that?
Why don't you say to yourself, well, listen, there's somebody I really want to work with. Why don't I do it now?
No, I would do it now.
Because you seem more at peace with yourself.
Yeah, I would do it now. It's actually, and I have done. When we were writing for the last Deacon Blue record, Greg and I went over to Nashville and we wrote with other writers, and it's a funny one, and it works sometimes really well, and sometimes you're just a little bit, that there's something else there, and someone else will bring that out. So I actually do it now, but it's always getting the right people. It's just getting the right person.
And if there was one that you thought, here's my dream, this guy by my side, to open up his mind and my mind.
No, I don't. I never think that.
No,
because I've been in too many writing sessions where it's the least, it's the most surprising person in the room that kind of comes out with the gold. It's not about that. I mean, I've worked Egg White's a brilliant writer. He's written some great songs on his own. Leave Right Now for Will Young and so on. We've written a song for Will Young together, and we've written other things. He and I have written a couple of, I think, beautiful songs. But Egg, again, when he writes, his voice goes quite high, and it's not in my range. So it's sometimes, it's just the right song. If the right song happens along the way, then you're always grateful for it. But I have sought out good people sometimes.
Yeah, Ricky Ross, Dundee United. It's a big love. Did you one day dream of pulling on that tangerine shirt?
I did. I think that when I was younger, certainly all of us as kids just wanted to be footballers. I mean, that was just the thing. My son, I've only got one son. He wanted to be a footballer, and it was just the thing.
Is he a Dundee United fan? Have you won the battle?
Well, I didn't make it a battle, and I kind of tried to kind of not be too hands-on. Actually, what happened was I did take him to Dundee United early, and he did fall in love a bit. I don't know why, but when he was in his teenage years, his mum knew always that he was would love to go to this drama group, and he went during the week. And then they changed the time to a Saturday afternoon. And when he first went, he realised he wasn't going to be able to go to the football. And he was almost in tears. He was about 13 or something like that. And he was almost just, this is going to be the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Why are you doing this to me? Torture. So he goes to the group, comes out, and he just comes out and goes, that's the happiest day of my life. And he's now starting to be very successful. Actually, you can see him in Rebus at the moment. He's on TV. He's doing very well. So he's... he found his thing, he found his tribe, and despite not being able to go to Saturdays, we go together. In fact, the two of us have just for the first time bought season tickets.
Brilliant.
For next season. He phoned me up and said, Dad, I think we should go for it. I said, well, we'll not go every week, but between us, I'll invite our pals or something.
And you must have had no matter how many stars who get the fame, they always have the fame, gene on other people. You always have that, oh, I love him. Was there a United player that you thought, oh, I'd love to be him?
Yeah. Oh, did I have that?
Yeah, did you have a player that you thought?
Oh, yeah, when we're growing up, Jimmy Henry. I don't know.
Yeah?
Do you remember? You don't even remember?
No, I wouldn't remember him.
Jimmy Henry was he had a shimmy cut. He had a pure mod cut, and the shorts kind of slightly half down. This would be the Jim McLean first sort of early days, and he was the one guy that we thought was kind of cool and could pass the ball around a bit. Once met a taxi driver in Glasgow that we got talking, and he knew Jimmy. And I don't think Jimmy's career went that well after that, but he was the one that we always thought was brilliant. And I also remember in the old days when you'd go to Tannadice, there wasn't really segregation, so you ended up standing beside, especially with Celtic Rangers coming, they would just take over,
Yeah.
And it wasn't always as heavy as you'd like to think. And I always remember one time I was in an unfamiliar bit of the ground. I was in this old enclosure, which normally I wasn't in, and I was kind of liking the fact that Jimmy was showing his moves, to the Rangers, and this old guy behind me, you're Gallus, son, but it's getting you in a place. And my kind of world kind of crumbled. But he was just, taking apart my favourite player, and then he leaned over at me and said, "Do you want a polo mint, son?" I said, "I'm a Dundee United supporter." He said, "That's good, son. You support your local team."
Yeah.
It was lovely. It was that Glaswegian, kind of the best of Glaswegians,
Because you used to be able to walk round at half time.
Yes.
You could walk right round and go to the other end.
Absolutely.
Because you wanted to see your team scoring that goal.
Yeah, I mean that was, and inevitably there'd be some sort of scrap going on half. But yes, it was I mean, you try and describe football, try and describe what Hampden in the 70s to people nowadays, they won't believe you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. So yes, long story short, it was probably Jimmy Henry. But soon after that era obviously came a whole golden era of players that I eventually, in fact, I'll see some of them on this coming weekend because there's an anniversary of the Cup win.
Yeah, Sturrock was my favourite player from that team. He was just a genius,
Yeah.
and they were a fabulous team. I've had the good fortune to interview more than a few of them. Is there, when you look at, we're talking about people who are geniuses, is there because you're a great songwriter, is there a song you wish you'd written?
Of other people's songs?
Other people, yeah. You just.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, there's so many times you kind of hear things and you think, yeah, I would have loved to have, I would love to put my name to that. I mean, I remember the first time I heard a country song that I thought, oh, that's good, it's because it's clever and it's the Don Schlitz song that Randy Travis sang called "On the Other Hand." And I was driving the car. I actually stopped the car and thought, wow, that's so good.
Did you think levels?
What's that?
Did you think levels? Because sometimes you think, you're talking about how you love Real Gone Kid.
Yeah.
Is that one of those ones where you think, wow, that's on another level? Or
just artistically, just thinking that, that it was so well constructed, melodically, but just that ability to tell a story. Yeah, and I'm sure there's other ones I can never put my finger on it. I mean, the last Aeneas Mitchell album that she made, and just some of the things. And funnily enough, even we just became slightly obsessed by listening to things from Hamilton recently, and went to see our kids give us a Christmas present of tickets to Hamilton, and that song, "It's Quiet Uptown." It's just again these things you think, gosh, it's good.
Really clever to put it together. Is there a person or a group of people that you've met in the industry, maybe as somebody you would have loved to have, met up with and chatted with, a hero that's not disappointed you?
I was always so nervous about meeting people, because of that very thing that you don't want to. I did meet Bruce Springsteen. I love Bruce Springsteen. I met him a couple of times, and he's brilliant, lovely. He just couldn't have been nicer. So I'm always kind of pleased that it happened. And people say, "Oh, we'd like to meet Bob Dylan." I know, why would I want to? And Bob Dylan always goes, "Well, why would anyone want to meet me?" So I wouldn't want to. And I was a bit nervous. I love Randy Newman. I'm a great Randy Newman fan. And a friend of mine was putting on a show at Queen's Hall, and he did this lovely show at Queen's Hall. He said to me afterwards, "Do you want to come and say hello?" I said, "I really don't, because I just, I'd rather just keep it there." And then, as it happened, There was talk of us doing a Randy. Randy's getting old now, so he's less able to do this. But there was talk of us doing a radio. We did a big 2-hour Randy Newman special on another country, the show that I do, which was great. I mean, it was just a kind of, a fanboy thing to do, really. And he'd heard of that, and so after the show that he did in Glasgow last time, I had my best pal with me, who's also a big Randy Newman fan. I said, "Listen, do you want to go?" And of course, he was quite keen to meet. And then Randy was just this lovely pussycat of a man, just couldn't have been nicer and more welcoming. And so yes, I mean that was and Jackson Browne, I have to say as well. Similarly, I've interviewed Jackson a couple of times, and it's just been a real pleasure.
Your musical taste is right on the money. I mean, everyone you've mentioned is exactly the music that I would listen to. Did you enjoy being out of I wouldn't say out of your comfort zone, but did you enjoy being in a radio situation? You've won awards for another country on the BBC. Is it something that takes you out of your comfort zone, or is it just something where it's a fanboy?
I think at first it was, and sort of learning how to do it, I suppose. I was really lucky that I had a great producer, and still the same producer that just kind of helped me through it. But I suppose what's been lovely about it, the conversations are the thing that's what makes it special. Is being able to do what you're doing. It's just lovely sitting down with people, and if you, to be honest with you, the thing that happens to most artists is that you're interviewed badly in your life, and this is not one of them, by the way, Peter, but you're interviewed very badly in your life, and when you're doing a lot of promo stuff, you can think of the times that you actually get a good interview. Sometimes you're doing days where you're doing maybe 20 interviews down the line a day, and so someone that comes along and actually has done some preparatory work and has actually listened to your record, for example,
makes all the difference.
Makes all the difference. So I've approached my interviews like that. I just thought, well, I'm gonna just do my homework, because I'm not a natural. I'm not going to sit down and just shoot the breeze here. I want to listen to the record, and I just want to give them the interview that I would have wanted. And I think that's been quite satisfying when people say, "Well, thanks, that was a good interview." I find that really, I find that really satisfying.
Everybody can look back on the purple patch of Deacon Blue, or they'll talk about the albums, and they'll talk about Fergus Sings the Blues and all these top hits. I can't quite put my finger on when a band eventually has that huge popularity, and then they start making albums which maybe are not as huge, but they still have that core following. I mean, your last album, I thought there were some great songs on that, and I wonder if you get to that point where you think, well, it's not going to be a huge commercial thing, but I'm still playing to the audience that's coming along for the ride.
Yeah, I think listen, all acts have these moments, maybe 2 or 3 albums where it's it's gone well beyond their core audience. It's gone, other people are buying it, and people are buying it because they think this is the thing to buy. So that happens. What I think we identified was that if you are to be a band, you have to be creative, and if we were going to go out and do touring, this is about 2008, I think. Fun enough, we were out with Simple Minds. We're doing sort of a bunch of shows with Simple Minds, and we came back from it and had this conversation with ourselves. And I said to Lorraine at the time, I said, I do not want to go out and just play the same set of songs again and again until it just kind of diminishes. So we either have to be a band and do something new, or you just don't do it. And as it happened, change of management, various things happened. The clear direction was to make a record, and that was a thing called The Hipsters. Now that came out in 2012, and since then we've made 4 studio albums, a live album, a DVD, a live thing, Christmas EPs, mini album, loads of stuff that we've done, and it's been really creative time. And I think what the importance of that is the audience knows that you're being creative, even if they're not going to just stick that at the top of the charts or whatever. And I think that's the kind of where we are at the moment, which is a lovely place to be.
Yeah, I'm going to now take you into what I call the kind of a popular questions, which you might find easy to answer in a quick fire fashion, but then again, it'll get you thinking. So, if I had to give you 2 tickets, you and Lorraine, you're going to any concert you want to, which artist or which band would you be happy to say, right, thanks for that, Peter?
Well, we took, a friend of mine was putting on the Bob Dylan show a couple of years ago, Mark Mackey, who promotes it, he said to me, we were playing at the Edinburgh Castle, and he said, I've just got Bob Dylan coming, do you want tickets? And it was about 4 months away, and then when it came near the point, I said to Mark, Mark said, oh, by the way, was it 2 tickets or 4 tickets you wanted? So I said, 4.
4. I'm taking my mates.
Took my daughter and her now husband, and I was thinking, they don't know this, and even if they did know it, they wouldn't recognise half the songs. It was wonderful. It was twice I've seen Bob Dylan at the Armadillo, and he's at such an age now that that's the one I'd want to see again. Yeah. It's just so enjoyable.
And it's a bit desert island disky, but if you've got 5 albums that you have to take with you, can you name them? And I don't mind if you're going to be a wee bit arty and give us one that people are going to look and go, oh, for fuck's sake, Ricky, we don't even know that album.
I can't, off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I mean, we talk about Jackson Browne, for example. Late for the Sky is one of his albums that I go back to again and again and again. Some other day in my Instagram was just talking about Tunnel of Love, and I was thinking, how much do I love that album by Springsteen? And I've been listening a lot of Joni Mitchell, and it's all hard to take. But weirdly enough, I rebought an album that I hadn't owned. I discovered actually I did have the CD, but I thought you could, because Joni was off Spotify, and it was kind of weird. You couldn't listen to Joni for a while. She'd come to her senses. And there's a live album, which is the first album that I bought, called Miles of Isles. I bought it because it was like the greatest hits of Joni, and that's all you could afford. It was a live album. And because of the time it came out, I'm really fond of that. So, probably that one. And if I'm going to, an obscure one, I'm a huge Keith Jarrett fan. I've always loved his piano playing, and it's an album that I bought in the 70s in Dundee and vinyl. I've rebought it a couple of times, called Arbor Zena, with a sort of orchestra. And so that's one of these records that I'd go back to. What else would I?
Have you got one more?
Well, it would have to be a country record, I think, probably. And I'm gonna take maybe one of actually I'm going to take that N.A.S. Mitchell album, because she's not really country, but she's just brilliant. And our last album is something called N.A.S. Mitchell, and I've listened to it constantly for the last 2 years. So why should it change?
Can I ask you this just briefly, just before we get to the last 3 questions? You mentioned there Joni Mitchell. Joni Mitchell singing Both Sides Now when she was younger was full of hope.
Yeah.
Joni Mitchell singing at the tail end of her career, I felt as if I was listening to somebody who had lived their life.
Yeah.
I could feel it in the song.
Yeah.
Is there a song for Deacon Blue that you have changed a little as the ravages of time have hit you?
Well, I think sometimes the emphasis you put on the song, I think sometimes the context that you put in the song, playing Dignity then, playing Dignity now, having that element of hope and having that element of here's a dream that you hold on to, but now you're a bit older, you know what dreams are going to happen, what dreams aren't going to happen. So all that is context. Sometimes it's where the song lands, And I think that sometimes probably we do sing songs a little bit more poignantly than they were first delivered. I've re-recorded things in different ways. Raintown as a piano song, Wages Day as a country song. On the last solo album I did Your Swaying Arms, which was just on a piano vocal. So sometimes sometimes people say, it's kind of brought that song to life again.
Yeah. This one, you're under a bit of pressure with this one. You're driving across America. You could be on Route 66. I've mentioned this to Bobby Bluebell, to Graham Skinner, to Billy Sloan, you name it. You're in the car, you're driving. You can have 3 people in the car, living or dead, famous or... I know there'll be pressure to take Lorraine, but you've just got to say there, look, it's a once-in-a-lifetime journey. Who are the 3 people?
Who are the 3 people? Oh, my goodness. I have no idea. But, I don't think you want to take Joe Biden, because you have a big security.
Well, I picked McCartney, Reese Witherspoon, and Barack Obama.
Oh, that's quite good. That's quite good. No, I actually see. I would have no. I would have no idea. I would have no idea. I think I'll be really honest with you. If I was driving on Route 66 and if I was driving across America, I love driving in America, and I love going off in the south. I'd like to be on my own.
Yeah.
I like to be on my own.
You know your mates are going to give you pelters. Yeah. I can't believe you didn't pick me. Yeah. You've got 3 songs then, if you're on your own. What are the ultimate 3 that you'd never get tired of playing when you're driving that car?
Well, I grew up with She Loves You. That was a song that me and a wee boy, we used to sort of do the tennis rackets on the thing. And I still love She Loves You. I think it's great. So I would pick that one. So I'll pick that one from now. I think I still love Thunder Road, and there's still something about that song that you know. I think songs that you can go back to and think, I can remember the first time I heard that, you know, and it's sort of, you know, it's a travelling song. So I think maybe today I'll pick that one. And we talked about Randy Newman, so maybe we should pick a Randy Newman song. I'm just trying to think which one now, but I don't know. And maybe Sail Away, because it's a song that we used to cover, you know. But it will change, you know. The thing about it is it just... But if I would be happy with these 3.
Yeah, and I'm going to leave you with the last question, which goes right into your football and your love of football. Your 5-a-side team. Now, Henry, you've obviously picked Jim Henry because he made you happy. So who's the other 4?
Well, Hamish would be in the goals.
He's got to be. Yeah, he takes penalties too.
Well, I have Davy Bowman because he's a pal.
Yeah.
And Davy's just a great guy. Just a great guy. And I think he'd organise things and he'd make sure people turned up, I think, you know. And then I'd have Kevin Gallagher. How many have I got? I've got 1 left.
You've got Bowman, Hamish, Henry, Kevin Gallagher, and 1 more.
Oh, 1 more. Well, we're going to need to bring a ringer in.
Yeah,
we're going to need to bring.
I thought 3 of them were ringers right away. So who are you going to bring in?
I'd bring that wee guy that scored for Atlanta and right now.
Lookman.
He was just great, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was absolutely fantastic. Listen, it's been an absolute joy. I've loved going through your musical career and you as a person as well, and I'm happy to say you haven't changed, which is magnificent all through the years. It's been an absolute joy. Ricky Ross, thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. It's lovely.
Top man.